Hip hop is a mix of everything that came before it.
It's vinyl culture, it's DJs, it's bold expression emanating from a time of social unrest.
A sampling of various cultural and musical languages that fit into a uniquely urban mosaic.
Today's pop music appropriates most of its juice and its grandeur from hip hop.
But the heart of hip hop will always remain with the underground. I think the time of, coming out of disco, which is another subgenre of R&B, there was a certain kind of a lifestyle that came with the music, coming from everything from blues to jazz to this R&B to the celebratory disco, and this happy aspect of life that wasn't complete.
It wasn't complete.
And there's, another level of adversity that once again, Black people in America still, as far as we've gotten, we have not arrived to the nirvana of equality, and so that younger generation didn't feel like celebrating
They needed more.
in that way of the disco form. They needed more.
They needed a new voice. Like, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, is great as they are, and they're the kings, but you needed someone new to to intensify that and speak to a younger generation, because the issues were the same, but they were masked differently.
It gave us a voice. Hip hop actually inspired people to vote. Hip hop changed the way the country is run. If you think about what we were saying with jazz, with instruments, to what we started saying a little more clearly with soul, to now what we were saying with hip hop, from people like Chuck D with Public Enemy, to groups like NWA, where we were demanding a place in society. Hip hop was the bedrock of the future.
But I was a fan of, like yourself, the fan of the Delphonics. And that's the music that was in my house. A lot of Delphonics, a lot of stylistics. And when I heard hip hop sampling that, I said, this is what I'm a fan of. I didn't even really say it was hip hop. I just said it's another Black group of people. They called it hip hop, and then hip hop started saying, we don't f with R&B. And I was like, what are you talking about? That made me laugh. I'm like, what are you saying you don't f with R&B? You wouldn't even be around without R&B or jazz. You had to.
There was that mind state for a certain group of people, but that statement wouldn't be true.
Because they was all sampling R&B.
Sampling R&B, like hip hop wouldn't be here if it were not for R&B, for soul music,
The one thing that hip hop did that other genres of Black music did not do to the same degree is serve as a conduit to the past, because it provided a nexus. It was our culture sampling old music.
People were digging for the samples and discovering all those compilations. And that was what opened the doors for me for going back and really I was getting into samples. I was like, oh, they sampled jazz. I'm gonna go listen to jazz. They sampled James Brown. I'm gonna go listen to James Brown now. So it was really, everything came through that filter for me. That was my entry point into all the music that predominantly influences me.
Terrace, talk to me about your story, because we are the same age. We grew up listening to the same hip hop, but something that you did before I even did was pick up an instrument. I always say that I wasn't even really into jazz until I heard Tribe. But you got introduced to jazz and hip hop a different way. Talk to me about your summer in New York.
My uncle's playing the saxophone. For some reason, he played this one. I've been seeing him all my life. Play one day and play one note, and that went straight to my spirit, like, and then everything started coming together. Tribe samples, the horn. Then my uncle said, if you play horn, you gotta learn piano. All these things start coming together, sampling. And then it started being like, I could play. I never thought about replaying samples because I don't believe in that. I believe sample is the instrument. But I said I could play along to the samples. I could play the samples and sample. I never wanted to. That's why I don't look at it as separate. It's one thing.
You know, a question I get asked often, when people say, what do you do? I say, I'm a musician. They go, oh, really? What instrument do you play? And there's a moment of hesitation because I have to think about my journey. And I always say, my first instrument is turntable. And depending on the age of the person, the demographic, they kind of don't understand that.
Talk to me. Talk to me.
But I still, to this day, I look at the turntable as my first instrument because it is
Like from a scratching standpoint or from a production standpoint?
From both, but
Okay.
more so from it being the gateway to me learning how to play bass guitar. To me, it's all the same.
If you put live bass on it, now it comes all the way to live, or drums, even live, the show, you know. If the musicians are playing it right, you know, you can appreciate it. It's supposed to enhance the record because even with the sample, that was a live instrument. So, you know, we can't have one without the other, so.
Live instruments bring just a different element to a show that I feel like nothing else can, you know? And even within hip hop, majority of the records sometimes don't even have guitar in them, you know? And like now, guitars are like leading the industry.
When we get to this topic of misappropriation, just like jazz, just like soul, we always say, it's okay to do what you feel, as long as you give love to where it came from.
It's cool to be inspired and take different things from anything. You know, I take things from Mexican culture and Latino culture and different things. I put it in my music, all kind of different things. Just don't disrespect it.
To me, if you're not really showing love to the people that paved the way, you ain't beyond. You gotta respect the people that made a way for you to do what you do.
It's just bothersome when you see that the pop culture will appropriate it without really bringing our community into the fold.
Hip hop came from the underground, but now hip hop is beyond the underground.
Mm-hmm.
I think absolutely, you know, people, pop music rips. Matter of fact, I would dare to say that hip hop is more pop than pop. You know, if we're talking about popular music.
Our identity has a lot more value because people are seeing us on a level playing field as far as the value of our music is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But what I hear from many artists that have different sessions is that when they're going into these rooms, the rooms are changing.
We would go into a pop session and then all of a sudden everybody wanted to do like a trap beat, you know, and it'd be like, okay, cool, but we can do so many other things outside of, you know, R&B and hip hop and trap.
And I think even when we first started, people wouldn't put us in pop sessions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had to build ourselves to a certain point that people would actually let us into those particular rooms.
There are so many different types of Black women, you know? And I'm just a different type that you may not have worked with before. You know, I'm not gonna do all that over there. I love it, I respect it, but like, we can do this too.
The only way I can make music with someone is if their mind is completely free and open. And what I mean by that is, often people will want to come in and say, hey, we want you to, want lightning to strike twice. You did that kind of sound, we want that again. And my approach and respect to music is that I think of Duke Ellington, I think of Nine Inch Nails, I think of Jadakiss, you know, I think of a vast array of great musicians, from Mahler or from Little John to Elton John. What I mean by that is when I create, there isn't a specific box that I create from.
I have had people try to push my music and my art into a box and then put some duct tape on it and keep it shut and just go out there into the world and, you know, people will buy this and it'll be fine. And why would you want to close something off that's so expansive?
I create from the respect of humanity, and understanding energy comes from all places. And we as hip hop lovers, fans from the culture, you specifically, going from the MPC to playing a vast amount of instruments. I don't think anyone coming in the studio and saying, "Hey, Mr. Adrian Young, I just want you to tap on that drum machine," I think they're coming in with the wrong mind frame. So,
well, the wrong mind frame is saying that you're only allowed to do this because you're Black.
yeah,
But that perspective is wrong because, first of all, hip hop music is beyond what traditional hip hop was. Hip hop music is now pop music. Hip hop music is now rock music. Hip hop has went into every place, but at the same time, hip hop is made up from every place.
mm-hmm.
So if you are a producer and you're making music that is predominantly hip hop, don't be afraid of the guitar, don't be afraid of the piano, don't be afraid of the bass. Because many of your favorite artists, from Jay-Z to Kendrick, have live instrumentation in their music. Instruments are not solely dedicated to making music that is not hip hop.
Yeah.
Instruments allow you to be free. Instruments allow you to connect with your past. And then when it comes to us creating music with soul, it's helping us speak with our ancestors. Hip hop is power, an ever-changing language that has reached every corner of the world.
To some degree, all modern musicians speak this language, as hip hop is America's past and the future.
But it all comes from the blues. It all came from the heart.
But when it comes to Black music, it's musicians harnessing the power of soul.